Welcome to Echoes of Creation. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the truth about heaven. Are you ready? And now I will guide you through a door that leads to heaven. We have always wondered where our souls go after we die. To heaven. A place with no more suffering, no more sorrow, none of the burdens or worries of our present lives. Or are we drawn into a cycle of reincarnation, where we lose all memory, return in the form of a child, and continue living a brand new life? Some people fear that they will descend into hell, a place filled with punishment and painful physical torture. Does our soul truly exist? Or is it just something created by human imagination? Many scientists have tried, and are still trying, to find answers to these questions, standing suspended between the boundary of reason and belief. Duncan McDougall, a doctor who lived in Haverhill, Massachusetts, in the United States, conducted studies that sparked many conflicting opinions about the existence of the human soul. He raised a question that made all of humanity shiver. Does the soul have weight? And if it does, how does it leave the human body in the final moment? Using a specially designed industrial scale, McDougall observed 6 patients who were on the verge of death. People standing between 2 worlds, where life was fading and death was opening an invisible door. Then the moment came. The scale needle moved slightly and stopped. A strange number appeared. About 21 grams had disappeared. There was no sound, no light, no visible sign. Only a slight loss, almost impossible to notice, yet enough to make the entire world question it. 21 grams. As light as dust floating in the air. But if McDougall was right, that could be the most essential part of a human being, the part that leaves when the body remains. Even though his experiment has been rejected by modern science, considered inaccurate and full of errors, that number still lingers in the human mind, like a whisper from the other side. Now imagine this. If the soul truly has weight, then when it leaves the body, where does it go? Does a place called heaven truly exist, as Jesus mentioned many times? He said that no one can come to the Father except through him. But come, does it really mean a journey to a specific place? Or is it a state that a person must enter? And if heaven is not a place beyond death, then what would actually happen? There is a theory that all of us have thought about at least once. Has heaven always existed? Closer than we have ever imagined? And perhaps someone has already been there and returned. In the late 1460s, in the city of Florence. A strange event took place. A young man named Leonardo da Vinci, during an exploration with friends, vanished without a trace. 7 days later, he was found unconscious at the foot of a mountain. There were no signs of injury, no evidence of any accident. His body was completely normal, as if nothing had ever happened. He did not tell anyone at the time what had happened. But from that very moment, Leonardo da Vinci began to change, and within just a few years, he became one of the greatest minds humanity has ever known. So what exactly did he go through? Some records state that, after that event, Leonardo once told a close friend that during the time he disappeared, he was not truly in this world. He said he had been guided. Angels carried him away. His soul was separated from reality and taken to a place beyond Earth, a place he could not describe using ordinary language. Could that have been heaven, the kingdom of God that Jesus spoke about? Did Leonardo actually meet God? Even though there is no concrete evidence, this theory still raises many questions. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the greatest minds humanity has ever known, a man whom history cannot seem to place into any single category. He was not only a painter, but also a scientist, an engineer, an anatomist, and an inventor. His designs were hundreds of years ahead of his time. Even some of his drawings are only now beginning to be fully understood. So the question is, how could a man living in the 15th century see things so far beyond his time like that? The mystery may not only lie in what he invented, but much deeper within the paintings he left behind. Because behind each of those paintings are layers of information stacked upon one another, hidden codes that even to this day, scientists have not been able to fully decode. The painting of Mona Lisa, one of his most famous works, the woman with the mysterious eyes and smile, has captivated the world for more than 500 years. And only recently, people discovered that within that painting are strange codes, revealed through magnification technology. The letters L and V in the right eye, C, E, or B in the left eye, and numbers like 72 or L2 hidden in the eye arches. And most strangely, when the eyes of the Mona Lisa are placed under polarized light, stars begin to appear, forming a structure like a constellation. Her eyes become a sky, a kind of miniature sky. Researchers believe that this is not a coincidence, but a message, something Leonardo intentionally left for us. And this becomes even more convincing when we look at another one of his works, Salvator Mundi, the painting where Leonardo depicts Jesus holding a crystal sphere to our eyes. It looks like just a transparent object, an ordinary glass sphere. But if you observe closely, you will realize it doesn't follow any laws of optics. It doesn't distort the image behind it. It doesn't reflect light like normal glass. And inside it, there are small points of light, faint, but arranged in order, like a constellation. And for someone like Leonardo, that is almost impossible to be accidental. It feels like a message. When comparing the sphere to the eyes of the Mona Lisa, an astonishing similarity appears. And the question begins to emerge, where does that constellation come from? What message is Leonardo trying to send to us? Could it be that it is not just an ordinary constellation, but the kingdom of heaven, the realm of God? The heaven that Jesus mentioned many times. In 2012, during a routine observation program by NASA, after using data from the Hubble Space Telescope, scientists discovered an image that was randomly captured by a computer. In that image was a strange constellation consisting of 3 large stars forming an equilateral triangle, along with many other stars surrounding it, creating a glowing halo. What shocked the scientists at NASA's research center was that after combining multiple images together to enhance the quality, they discovered that around that constellation appeared a series of structures that looked like glowing golden castles. What is even more strange is that after they used the Hubble telescope to return to the exact coordinates where the constellation was captured, they could not find it again. The image was immediately sent to NASA's Emergency Processing Center and was classified as one of the most highly restricted pieces of data in the world today. Could that be the place Leonardo once saw? Could he be trying to send us a message? His paintings have always contained many unsolved codes. Could it be that he wanted us to know there is a place existing parallel to our world, a place he once visited, the source of intelligence, the place we call heaven? Heaven. Where is it located? We are very close to the place that humans call heaven, the dwelling of divine beings, where angels fly across the sky. What matters now is not whether heaven exists, but whether we have ever been there before. In Eastern beliefs, there are also many ancient texts that mention heaven, and through thousands of years of history, although they are no longer completely intact. If you look deeper into those ancient stories, you will begin to notice repeating details that are almost chilling. In the Bible, the story begins in a perfect place called the Garden of Eden, a garden where humans knew no suffering or death. Adam and Eve lived in complete abundance until a choice was made, and everything changed. A small mistake, but with eternal consequences. Humans were cast out of heaven, falling into a world full of pain and limitation. From that moment on, life became a journey of redemption, and humans must constantly strive to find their way back. In Buddhism, the story does not begin with a single fall, but with an endless cycle, reincarnation. According to the teachings of Gautama Buddha, humans are trapped in the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, driven by desire and attachment. But there is also a destination, a state of complete liberation, a place without suffering, nirvana. And to reach it, humans must go through a long journey of cultivation, like searching for a forgotten way out. In Taoism, the story takes on a different perspective. The soul is not born, but descends into the human world. From a higher realm, entering the human body and beginning a life bound by material existence. Life is not the beginning, but a transitional stage. And just like the other two systems of thought, there is always a path to return, through cultivation, purification, and harmony with the Tao. 3 different narratives, but the same structure, a perfect place, an event that happens, and a way to return. Somehow, people from completely different civilizations, speaking completely different languages. And yet, when we look at their beliefs and faiths, we cannot ignore one astonishing common point. All of them speak of an original perfect state, a fall or loss, and a difficult journey to return. This could simply be the way humans try to explain existence, creating stories to ease the fear of death and the meaning of life. But there is another possibility, one that is harder to grasp, that these stories are not entirely imaginary. What if they are fragmented memories, passed down through time, changing across cultures but still keeping their core? If that is the case, then heaven is not a reward at the end of the journey, but a place we once belonged to. And perhaps, deep within the subconscious, humans always feel that something is not quite right, a vague sense that this world is not home, that somewhere, beyond the limits of perception, there is still a door leading back to a place we lost a long time ago. Daniel Carter never believed in heaven. As an American religious researcher, he spent more than 10 years of his life reading and analyzing ancient texts, from the Bible to the teachings of Gautama Buddha. But the deeper he went, the more he realized something strange. Every culture speaks about heaven, but no one truly describes it the same way. Until he turned to Buddhism. There, heaven is not the destination. According to the teachings of reincarnation, humans do not live just once, but are caught in an endless cycle of birth and death. Within that cycle, there are heavenly realms, such as Triastrimsa, where beings live in light, happiness, and almost no suffering. But there was one detail that kept Daniel awake for many nights. Even in heaven, they will still fall. No one stays there forever. That question led him to an ancient temple deep in the Himalayas. There, he met an old monk, someone the villagers believed had lived through many lifetimes. Daniel asked him a simple question. Is heaven real? The monk did not answer right away. He simply looked out at the white mist covering the valley, then quietly said, "Yes, but you will be disappointed when you learn the truth." That night, under the dim light of an oil lamp, the monk told a story that Daniel would never forget. He said that he had once been there. Not in a dream, not in imagination, but in a previous life. He described a world without a heavy physical body, where thoughts could create form, where everything was filled with light and peace. A place that anyone would call heaven. "I thought I had escaped," he said, "until I started falling." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Falling? Coming back here. The monk looked straight at him. Into another body, another life, another cycle. In that moment, everything Daniel had ever read suddenly connected. Heaven in Buddhism is not an escape. It is just a part of the system. A place so beautiful that it makes you forget. You are still trapped. Before Daniel left, the monk told him one final sentence. "If you truly want to escape, do not look for heaven." "Then what should I look for?" "Something beyond even heaven." Many years later, Daniel disappeared during a trip. No one knows where he went. People only found his notebook, left behind in his old rented room. On the last page, there was a line written hastily. "Heaven is not the end. It is only the most beautiful part of the loop." And if that is true, then the question is no longer where we go after we die, but rather, have we ever truly escaped? So if heaven is not the destination, but the starting point, then this entire life may not be a journey upward, but a journey back. Have you ever wondered why in your dreams you sometimes see strange places you have never been to, or people you have never met? Have you ever felt as if you have been somewhere before, or felt a strange familiarity with an ancient structure, a historical site, even though it might be thousands of miles away, even halfway across the world? And in this video, we are going to search for a mystery, a missing piece inside our minds, something that has been hidden somewhere, and that may explain why, deep within every human being, there is always a strange feeling, a feeling that science cannot measure, a sense of longing with no clear origin, an emptiness, even when everything seems complete, as if we are remembering a place that we cannot name. And if that is true, then near-death experiences are not discoveries, but recollections. That is why when we move into the light, we never feel fear, never confusion, but always feel peace, feel protected, because at some level we recognize it like walking into a room you have never been in, yet it feels strangely familiar. And this does not appear in just a few isolated stories. It appears again and again. In records from many ancient Chinese cultures, there is a concept called heavenly beings descending to the human world. Beings from the heavenly realm are sent down to Earth to fulfill a mission, and after completing it, they return. But during that process, they lose their memory, living like ordinary humans, not knowing who they are, not knowing where they came from. Does that sound like us? And if that is true, then the question is no longer, where is heaven? But who? You or me? How many of us truly do not belong here? Or perhaps great figures, politicians, scientists, those who have contributed and led humanity. And if we go even deeper, in Eastern legends, there exists a garden called Yaoqi, a place that only beings who reach a certain level can enter, a place with peaches of immortality that bloom once every thousands of years, and only those who are invited can attend. What is interesting is, not everyone can enter, not because the gate is locked, but because they do not meet the conditions. This repeats exactly the structure many people have experienced. The gate is not closed, but we cannot pass through, not because we are forbidden, but because we are not ready. And if we look at it that way, then heaven is not a reward, but a state of compatibility, like a radio frequency. It always exists, but you can only hear it when you tune to the right signal. And if that is the case, then the entire human life may just be a process of tuning. Every experience, every choice, every action is changing your frequency, bringing you closer or farther away from that state. And this is where science, religion, and philosophy begin to intersect. When Nikola Tesla spoke about frequency, he was not talking about religion. When Albert Einstein spoke about layers of reality, he was not talking about heaven. Yet somehow, they touched the same idea, that reality is not just a single layer, and human consciousness may be the key to moving between those layers. And if that is true, then death is not the only door, but just one of many ways to cross over. This explains why, in deep meditation, some people have described experiences very similar to near-death experiences. They see light, they see images, they feel a sense of absolute peace without having to die. So is it possible that heaven is not after death, but after awareness, and that death is simply an extreme way to force that awareness to change? And if you continue thinking in that direction, a more unsettling question begins to appear. If heaven is where we truly belong, and this life is a journey back, then what happens if we never return? If we continue to be held back by unfinished things, relationships, regrets, emotions, then could it be that we are the ones keeping ourselves inside a loop without even realizing it? And that may be what religions call reincarnation, not a punishment, but a consequence of not letting go, not finishing, not being ready. And if that is the case, then heaven is not a place you search for, but a state you become when you are no longer bound to this world. And if one day you stand before that light, just like hundreds of others. The question will not be, is this heaven? But whether you are ready to stay, or if you will return back into your body once again, without ever knowing that you have touched the boundary between two worlds, between memory and truth, between the place you are living and the place you truly belong. Many great minds throughout history have also spoken about some kind of source, a place where knowledge is not created, but transmitted. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors in history, once said that his brain was only a receiver, that every idea, every invention did not come from him, but was sent from somewhere in the universe. And he believed that to understand the secrets of the universe, humans must think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, concepts that may sound abstract, yet appear again and again in stories about consciousness, about the soul, and about what humans call heaven. Albert Einstein, the man who changed the way we understand time and space, also believed that reality is not limited to a single layer, that there are other layers of reality where ordinary humans cannot observe, cannot reach, unless they are in special states, moments when the boundary between life and death becomes thin. And that is when science, something created by humans, will never be able to explain things that go beyond the limits of human perception. Raymond Moody, the author of the book Life, Afterlife, spent most of his life studying near-death experiences. He interviewed and documented hundreds of people who had gone through clinical death and returned. And what is unsettling is that most of them experienced similar fragments of memory, even though they did not know each other. They did not share the same religion. They did not share the same culture. Yet they described the same journey, leaving the body, moving through a tunnel, seeing a very bright light, but not blinding, where they saw people dressed in white, small angels flying, and a feeling of absolute peace. They did not know each other, yet they described the same place, heaven. The story did not begin in a book, but in a cold hospital room in the United States in the 1970s, where Raymond Moody first heard something he could not explain. A patient who had been declared clinically dead for a few minutes suddenly woke up. But what caught Moody's attention was not the fact that the man came back to life, but what he described afterward. The man said that the moment his heart stopped, he no longer felt pain. Instead, there was a sense of lightness, as if a part of him had just left his body. He looked down and saw himself lying on the hospital bed while doctors were trying to revive him. He did not panic. It was just that he no longer belonged there. Moody thought it was just an isolated case, until he heard the second person, then the third, and then dozens more. People who did not know each other, did not share the same religion, did not share the same culture, yet all of them told almost the exact same story. These stories were later recorded in the book Life, Afterlife. But if you read it as a scientific document, you will miss the most important part. Because in reality, it feels more like a story. In all of these accounts, there is one detail that always repeats. After leaving the body, they begin to move, not by walking, but as if being pulled forward through a dark space, like a tunnel with no end. Some describe it as endless, others say it lasted only a few seconds, but they all agree on one thing. At the end of the tunnel, there is light. It is not a blinding light that forces you to close your eyes, but a kind of living light, warm, gentle, and aware. One woman said that as she moved closer, she felt as if her entire life was being understood, not judged, but seen, accepted with all of her mistakes. Another man said that the light knew him. No words were needed, no questions were asked. Just a presence that made all fear disappear. Then comes the part that took Moody many years to reflect on. Most of these people said that they reviewed their lives, not like a simple movie, but reliving every moment, every word, every action, not only from their own perspective, but also through the feelings of those around them. If they had ever hurt someone, they felt that pain. If they had ever helped someone, they felt that joy. No one judged them, only themselves, facing everything. And then, just as they thought they had reached the place where they belonged, everything stopped. A boundary appeared. No one could clearly describe what it was. A door, a river, an invisible wall. But they all understood one thing. If they crossed it, they would not be able to return. The strangest part? Most of them did not want to come back. Because what they felt there, the peace, the freedom from pain, was beyond anything on earth. And yet, they still came back. Not because they chose to, but as if some force pulled them back. One person said he heard a voice. "It is not your time." Another said he was simply pushed back. And then suddenly, they opened their eyes, back into their body, back into the pain, back into the world they had just left. Moody never claimed that this was proof of heaven. He only asked a question. If the brain is dying, then why does it create the same experience with the same structure in so many different people? But there was one detail he only mentioned briefly, a detail that very few people noticed. Some people did not see the light. They stopped in the darkness. And they did not want to say anything more. That is where the story ends. Or at least, that is where the book ends. But for those who experienced it, it was only the beginning. Because after they returned, they no longer saw the world the same way. They were no longer afraid of death like before. But they were also no longer certain that life is only what we can see. Many years after Afterlife was published, it became a phenomenon. Not because it provided answers, but because it made people start asking questions. And perhaps the most unsettling question is not, does heaven exist? But if hundreds of people have seen the same thing, then what does that mean? Or in other words, is death truly the end? Or just the moment we step into another story? One that we have never been allowed to remember? But not everyone experiences it the same way. Some people describe a different path, darker, heavier, a bridge over black water, a feeling of isolation, emptiness, as if they are moving toward a place completely opposite. Hell, a place we will explore in another video. Raymond Moody believed that. They truly saw it. They were really there. On the other side of the earth, in Australia, in the vast desert known as the Outback, a former soldier named Chloe Thompson told a story that, to this day, still has no reasonable explanation. During an expedition in the Uluru Valley, he got lost, his water supply ran out, his body was exhausted, and in a state close to losing consciousness, he encountered a little girl. She was not a local indigenous child, but a white girl with blonde hair, wearing a very clean white dress, completely out of place in such a harsh wilderness. The girl told him that, while she was wandering, she had seen a waterhole nearby, and she could take him there. He tried to ask who she was, and why she was there, but she simply answered, "My home is up there, a place where angels live, and they opened a gate to let her come down here, to help him." And she said she would return, right after leading him to the water. At that moment, he thought the girl was just joking, but in his state of extreme thirst, he could not even remember how he followed her. Only when he regained consciousness, he saw the water hole. He rushed toward it, bent down to drink, and when he lifted his head, the girl was gone, completely, without a trace. A few days later, when the rescue team found him, they confirmed that they had used thermal radar scans in the area to narrow down the search. But there was no sign of any other human. No one else appeared within the search range. And what Chloe could not explain was that the distance from where he sent the SOS signal to the waterhole was nearly 2 kilometers, which is about 1.2 miles. In his condition at that time, it was almost impossible for him to travel that distance on his own. This left him completely shaken. So who was that little girl? Was she a real person? Or just a hallucination? And if she was not human, then could it be that she came from heaven? Those thoughts have likely haunted him ever since. Chloe's story is not the only one. In Boston, a university lecturer named Sarah, one of the few who survived, a person who believed in science, in data, in things that can be measured, went through an experience that forced her to question everything she believed. On a weekend morning, May 25th, 2013, a day she could never forget, a terrible accident took both of her legs, and nearly her life. When she was taken to the hospital, her heart stopped. Sarah recalled,
"I only had time to see a truck losing control and crashing into me. I could not react. I felt my body being thrown, and then everything went dark. No pain, no sensation, just emptiness. I remember fragments of memory. I remember people trying to help me, calling my name, trying to open the car door. I remember, but I was not in my body. I saw everything from a different perspective, like an observer. Then the medical team arrived. They tried to save me. I heard someone say that I was gone. And then I saw a light pulling me away, unconsciously. From that moment, everything started to become clear."
What is remarkable is that what she described almost completely matches what Raymond Moody recorded. She said she moved through a long tunnel with no walls, no boundaries, formed by streams of white light. And at the end of that path, there was a vast space, a green field, with grass, with flowers, incredibly beautiful. There, a man dressed in white, with a gentle smile, was standing, waiting for her. He introduced himself as an angel, responsible for guiding her to a place where she would review her life, right and wrong, every choice, every thought, every action, everything would be revealed. And there, she would learn how to become worthy of being a citizen of heaven. Not long after, they reached the end of the path, where there was an old wooden gate. He told her she had to enter alone, because he was only a guide, and the next place was meant only for her. When she stepped inside, her life became like a film, rewinding, and she watched it as an observer. From the moment she was born, growing up, every action, every decision, every thought, everything appeared clearly as if it had just happened. After it ended, a voice whispered into her ear, making her turn around in shock. But there was no one there. The voice continued, calmly asking her, did she have any regrets? If she could change anything, what would she change? And she answered, I know I am not perfect. I do not blame what God has given me, but I regret that I spent almost my entire life on work, on my students, and not enough on my children. They are still so young. I do not know what will happen to them if I am no longer there. And then the voice spoke again. So, you are not ready. Heaven only opens for those who are ready. And because you are worthy, you are given a choice. You chose to return. We will send you back. But you will have to accept a body that is no longer whole, and you will have to go through the hardships of human life. And whether you will be given another choice will depend on the rest of your life. After that, she remembered nothing more. She only knew that, after many months of treatment, she woke up. Those memories, at first were faint, but over time, they became clearer and clearer, until her life gradually stabilized. And when she returned to the classroom, in a wheelchair, she decided to tell everything. She said, "Many people think I am crazy. Many people say I made it all up. But I do not care. I just feel that I have to say it. It is my mission. I know not everyone will believe, but I hope each person will live better, to be worthy of entering the kingdom of heaven." And perhaps the final question no longer lies with them, but with us. What do you think? Does the kingdom of heaven truly exist? And if it does, where is it? And at this point, perhaps what we have just gone through is no longer simply a series of separate stories, but something more like a larger picture, where all the pieces from science, religion to personal experiences are gradually coming together in a way that even we could not have expected. From the 21-gram experiment by scientists like Duncan McDougall to the near-death experiences recorded in Afterlife by Raymond Moody, from the story of the Garden of Eden in the Bible to the cycle of reincarnation in the teachings of Gautama Buddha, or the path of cultivation and return in Taoism. All of them, in one way or another, point toward the same core idea that humans once existed in a perfect state, left it, and are now living in a journey of returning, one that we are not fully aware of. You might think that all of this is just coincidence, that humans, in their fear of death, created these stories to comfort themselves. But if it is only imagination, then why are these stories so similar, even though they appear in civilizations that have no connection with each other? Why do hundreds of people who have never met, who do not share the same beliefs or the same culture, describe the same journey when they reach the boundary between life and death? And why, deep within each of us, is there always a feeling that is so difficult to explain? A feeling that this world is not entirely where we belong? Try to remember. Have you ever stood in a place that felt completely unfamiliar, yet strangely familiar at the same time? Have you ever looked up at the night sky and for a brief moment felt as if you had been there before? even though you know that is impossible? Modern science can explain many things, but it still has no way to measure this feeling of belonging or not belonging, a kind of longing with no memory, an emptiness that remains even when your life seems complete. And it is at this point that everything begins to feel deeper and also more unsettling. If heaven is not a place beyond death, but a state of existence, a kind of frequency that humans once belonged to, then what caused us to leave it? And more importantly, what is keeping us here? Maybe the answer is not in the universe, not in distant stars, but right here in our own lives, in every choice, every relationship, every emotion that we have not been able to let go of. If we look at it that way, then reincarnation is no longer a punishment, but a consequence, a loop created by unfinished things left incomplete that cause us to return, to continue living, to continue experiencing until we are truly done. And that may also explain why, in so many near-death experiences, people find themselves standing before a boundary, a door, a point where they know that if they cross it, they will not be able to return. And yet, they still come back. Not because they are forced, but because, at some level, they are not ready to leave, not ready to let go, not ready to belong to that place. And if that is true, then heaven is not a reward for good people, but a state that you can only reach when nothing in this world binds you anymore. Looking back at everything we have gone through, from the story of Daniel to Sarah to Chloe and hundreds of others, perhaps what they are really trying to say is not whether heaven exists, but something much deeper. That this life is not a journey upward, but a journey back. A return to a place we once belonged to, but have forgotten. And death may not be the end, but simply one of many doors leading to a shift in awareness, a way to remember rather than to discover. And then, as all these questions begin to come together, we are left with one final question, one that no one else can answer for you. If one day you stand before that light, feeling absolute peace, no pain, no fear, nothing holding you back, what would you do? Would you step forward and never return? Or would you choose to come back once again to continue this life, to finish what is still unfinished, to continue a journey you have not yet completed? And if you do return, would you remember that you once stood there? Or would you forget everything, just like the way we are living now, as if this were the first time? Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Not where heaven is, but how many times we have stood before that door and turned back without ever knowing.